Welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast. I am Sana, and today's conversation, well, it is about something many of us experience, but we really name it. And what I kind of narrated here, I think that's what, I want to explore today through the idea, which is the Icarus Effect. And not the myth as a warning against ambition, listeners, but as a reminder that emotional growth isn't a straight line. And let me tell you that mindfulness, it doesn't make us immune to pain. It doesn't mean that we are running away from the pain. Sometimes it actually makes us feel things more clearly. And my guest today knows this terrain deeply. His story is not about avoiding hardship, but moving through it, built to break, shaped by pain, and still standing with a never quit attitude. He has faced more challenges than most, and instead of becoming hardened, he has chosen awareness, healing, and perseverance. So, listeners, this conversation isn't about inspiration for inspiration's sake. It is about what mindfulness really looks like when life keeps testing you. So, listeners, meet my lovely guest, Brian Reichert. Brian, welcome to the Mindful Living, and it's really an honor to have you here.
Well, thank you so very much for having me, and just a delight and excited to, wherever this goes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, Ryan, I think the instant question which all of us, the listeners, even I'm having also is like hearing the phrase, the Icarus effect is, talking about moments where emotional awareness grows, but instead of peace, we feel overwhelmed or exposed. So, from your experience, have there been times where becoming more aware of your emotions actually made life harder for you, not easier?
I That's kind of a double-edged, question
Okay.
on that one
Mm.
because when bringing up the Icarus Effect, I think about, the book that I wrote, The Icarus Effect, The Highs and Lows of Emotions, We All Have Feelings, and really in that moment, the story with in Greek mythology of Icarus and his father died as being trapped. I
Mm.
I believe that in itself is the dynamic of our emotional cage. Is it a feeling or is it an emotion or is it the emotion that creates the feeling and vice versa? And so when I look at it, I look at this labyrinth that we put ourselves in if we don't heal. And what I mean by that is when you brought up mindset,
Mhm.
our mind has this tendency to play on repeat whatever we believe. And so in that, it can be this dynamic to do you feel this way and then therefore you react? Or do you react this way because therefore you've felt something? And it's taken a long time. I'm someone who comes from a background where I stuffed my emotions and my feelings into a bag and didn't ever want to see them again. So therefore I covered them up with prescription drugs and alcohol. Now, 20 months into my recovery journey, I would say I'm not responsible for my first thought, but I'm responsible for my first action. And this dynamic that you pause, you might have this, crazy thought and want to, scream or whatever it may be when something happens, right? But we learn to pause. And in that pause, everything starts to change. And then it's also the understanding when we see life today, you really understand that no matter what happens, it's for the greatest good. And I get that that's so hard when someone says that out loud and you hear it and you're like, I'm going through, just think of myself, like going through a divorce. I've lost a job. My children don't want to have anything to do with me, so on and so forth. And in all that, you're like, how can I see any good whatsoever? It'll take time and space. And that's the whole thing as we go through things in life. We can't see it in the moment. And we have to learn to not so much control our emotions, but heal those triggers that we have inside of us. And that I believe today is, a lot of spiritual practices and so forth that I do. So that was the short version long.
Yeah, so and I think I really appreciate that you could condense everything here because I know that such a long and profound journey, not in terms of the number of years or your age, but the experiences, the observations, the highs and lows as a human that we face. It's sometimes very challenging to condense everything within such a short time. So really appreciate you sharing that, Ryan. And I um, feel this is important because um, specifically when it comes to mindfulness, I think we instantly picturize calmness, steadiness, or presence. But then um, what you shared and what I feel is like clarity before comfort, like seeing the truth before knowing what to do with it. And I think many listeners are right there. They are not failing at what is possibly being portrayed as mindfulness. They're just early in the process.
Yeah, I really love how you put that side of the clarity piece
Mhm.
because we get so caught up in whatever we believe the right narrative is as opposed to just the narrative. And I think that's where our own misunderstanding of mindfulness, mindset, it absolutely has to do with that clarity before comfort. I coach on that multiple times. It's growth over comfort, it's discipline over comfort, and all these things because as humans, we crave comfort. When I reflect on myself, I look at it as like I would absolutely do nothing every single day if I didn't have the discipline that I do. And we're talking about years of work. And then I had moments where I just threw it all out the window. For those who don't know, I was in the United States Army for 23 years.
Oh,
The Airborne Ranger. I spent 4 years combat. It's this dynamic that just because you can hold on to it for 23 years, and don't get me wrong, those 23 years were riddled with all kinds of drama. Where today I live a life of no drama, and you see through the clouds, the mist to find that clarity. And it takes a ton of work, a ton of reflection, a ton of cutting through all the just scar tissue that you created over the years, be it the trauma of childhood, whenever your whole life, right? There could be times of trauma that you never want to cut that scar tissue away and bleed again because you're like, I don't want to feel that ever again. It was the worst thing I ever went through. But it's like if you didn't heal it, you didn't do any work to make yourself better. How is it possible that you would never be triggered? People don't trigger you. You have something inside of you that isn't healed. And so the understanding of that is that clarity that you just spoke of. It's the greatest understanding that you can define is like through that pain that you felt, that trauma that you went through is your real purpose in life. That's like who you're supposed to be helping. I always say, I've become the protector my 6-year-old self always needed to have. And we're talking 47 years into this journey. It wasn't like it just popped up here, so many years down the road. It took, like I said before, um, a lot of mistakes, a lot of failures, but that's okay because as long as you get up again, you never truly failed.
absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Okay. And Ran, there is a popular idea that mindfulness means managing emotions better. Um, but as you share your experiences, your journey, like, do you think that mindfulness is actually about control or about something less comfortable? Like allowing emotions without fixing them, because I believe that's where the uniqueness of us humans lie. I mean, not everything has to be fixed or not everything is broken. I mean, I don't know. What's your thought on this?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. It's to me the dynamic, and I struggled so long. I couldn't get past this. I mean, in the Western world, we don't surrender. We're always on the offense. We fight, 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 fight. We toe the line. And I believe only in the surrender will you have that ability to see and have that clarity as we just discussed. And so can you give up that control that we all so yearned for? Because it is probably the scariest thing and the greatest thing I've ever encountered all in the same breath is that when you truly have the ability to surrender everything in your life, the beauty that comes from that finally, you release your grip on whatever you believe is the outcome that needs to happen, and you'll try to get it at any cost whatsoever. The problem is, what you don't realize that you're never going to get that feeling inside that if I get my bank account to pick a number, 1,000,000, 10,000,000, I'll be happy.
Mm.
When I have a 10,000 square foot house and, a maid, a butler, chauffeur, oh man, I'll be so happy. The dynamics of this is you can get all that and you'll feel so empty. You will not be fulfilled. And I only speak from my own experiences when I, had all those things in life. And I was like, When's this emptiness going to be fulfilled?" And it wasn't. And today I realized all along I was chasing the wrong things. I wasn't chasing that kindness for other people, to be a good human, to surrender to all the different things, especially those substances that I use to mask or bury
Mm.
those feelings and emotions. So I guess to that end is really in your mindfulness and your mindset. For me, it's my spirituality. I have extreme and profound faith today through all the experiences that I've went through, and how to get after that, and through that, you have hope. And once you have hope, then you're able to see love in everything you do. And when you're able to give love to you know strangers, you know or your family that you believe is just like drives you absolutely nuts, like when you can love them unconditionally, no matter what, and have that ability, that's where that mindset and that mindfulness really comes into play. And sure, don't get me wrong, there's dynamics, so many different layers and levels of this we could have hours of discussion on. But the only thing you can control is yourself. And so what would you be willing to do? Would you be willing to surrender to be at peace?
Yep, I think that's a very um pertinent and very it's a huge question. It's a huge session. It's simple, but then it's a huge question. And now something that you have been thinking about build to break, and it's been a very powerful phrase. Do you believe some people are business like to endure more pain, or do you think that belief itself can quietly keep people stuck in that survival mode?
I think that's the thing when it comes to us. When you talk survival, survival's a comfort. It might not seem that way, but you really are comfortable with your existence in that survival, and you don't want to make the necessary changes to create abundance. And what I mean by that, not abundance in the materialistic way,
Yeah.
because we can all, you know, get the job, build the thing, sell the thing, do the thing. that's not what we're talking about here. It's not what I'm talking about anyways. It's this dynamic of understanding where we go through this process and in our suffering, understanding that whatever your beliefs lie, you're putting yourself in between it. You know, that goes back to that control factor. So, whatever you do believe, I mean, the placebo effect here, right? The dynamic of like, I take this, like you take the red pill, I take the blue pill. And you're like, oh, look at my skin. It's all better and yada, yada, yada. And like, I look at, I'm like, I don't see it. But like you believed, right? Like, and I was just like, I'm just taking it because they told me to. Um, then what? You know, you tell me. That's the side of it that I love so much. I look at it where I know what works for me, so I'm gonna keep doing what works for me. And
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And it's just a very, you know, not commonly talked about, but something as simple as this, like some people, they would prefer to stay at home, have their favorite meal, watch maybe a movie or a series which they have watched like 100 times, but they may be mocked down upon, or their friends would say, "Why are you so like it's just so boring?" Uh, while others would seek comfort in going out places, in public, like the distinction that we popularly carve out within introverts and extroverts. But I think that is something they are not doing to run away, or they are antisocial, or they're not good with people, but that is something they are seeking um their comfort and safety in. I mean, it can trigger different emotions, maybe emotions of joy or something to more explore, or maybe nostalgia or something else. But I think once again, these differences and these unique emotions, these are something we as humans, we have been given this gift.
Yes, I mean, no, absolutely. We certainly it is a gift, and we need to understand that you can't I think of myself at times. There's moments that you need to rest and you need to take
Mm,
a break. You need to, have that comfort meal, watch that Netflix series, but do you need to do it from, say, slept in, 8 a.m. to, 8 p.m.? Do you need to do it like 12 straight hours, or could you,
mm,
you know, get up, make the meal, watch the show, go for a walk, read a book? Um, I just look at it always when it comes to like personal development and professional development and spiritual development. They're like, well, wait a second, couldn't you like, just bucket those into? And I'm like, no, I don't believe you can. I mean, that's why when I coach on consistency in your 3 daily wins, it's this dynamic where, you have a physical, a mental, and a spiritual win. I believe you get those all done, for me, where I'm at in this world, like from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. You do whatever those three things are for you during that time. If you go to work from 9 to 5, it will not matter what happens between 9 and 5. It'll have no impact whatsoever on your overall execution because you will have already won in the three areas in your life that you need to fulfill. And that to me, I had it. I was in the military and I just never realized it. And so when I transitioned into the civilian life about 4 years ago, I was lost because I didn't operate how I did for so many years, over 2 decades. And I think that inconsistency that we have where, you know, we work out once every 30 days, probably not going to give you those endorphins necessary and that hit that you need to. stay, ready to go all day long. And so, yeah, once a week, have a down day. I think it's wonderful. I think it's fantastic. That doesn't mean, though, it's just Netflix and chill for the 12 hours that you're up or 16 or however many hours you're up. It just means, you're not probably doing specifically some of the work stuff. And granted, you're talking to an entrepreneur here. So for me, it's always very different. I
Mhm.
work in spurts. And so that has a completely different way of how, business is done. But I do take one day a week off where, it's not always Sunday. It just depends on like what the schedule is. And I block one day, as things line up and it can be different. And where it's just you really focus on those areas, on that day I still read, on that day I still write, on that day I still work out. And people will say, well, that sounds like your profession. Well, I do it from a different lens. I read a book that, maybe isn't a genre that I normally read. I jot down different things that could be, you know, what I want to do with the family or, something like that. But it's just that dynamic of allowing yourself to have that creativity to continue to move forward with whatever that looks like for you. Everybody is completely different, right? Like the frameworks that I teach, like for some people, like obviously works out perfect. For others, it could be the most miserable thing, under the sun. And so that's why the cool thing is there's so many coaches out there and people that, help others. We're all just a part of life's teachers. So I think in that
Mm,
moment, it's, which way are you going to go with it?
whatever works the best for you.
Yep.
And also, um, this, the words like resilience or perseverance. But then when we bring that into the context of healing, I think it kind of becomes like, perseverance saves us, but then it can also delay being like if we never question it. So do you think that, Ron, there's a risk of pushing too far, too fast emotionally, especially for people carrying unresolved trauma, like to a certain point that they would have completely burned out or uh, lose sense of, who exactly they are, like their own identity.
Yeah, no, I think that's sometimes the problem. I think that goes back to the control we were talking about earlier, where you want what you want in a short period of time. You're like, in 30 days, I can be, what was the old one? It was like 8-minute abs or something like that. And and then it was like 6-minute abs. It's like, yeah, absolutely. 6 minutes, like every day for, how many days? But it's not like one day kind of thing. So then you do that and you're like going to the doctor because you're like, I haven't worked out in 10 years and I'm trying to do these 6-minute abs. And they said to do it this way, and next thing you know, you hurt yourself or whatever that looks like. It's the consistency that we're looking for here is how's the best way I want where you just have to be consistent like every single day then, not this like I'll do 12 minutes and then I can do it in half the time. Days wise. And that is always the case. I was that way. I was like, I'll just work harder and I'll just work 24 hours a day and I can have it in 90 days. And it's like 30 days into it, you gotta go to the doctor. You're sick. Like you're all run down, like and never took a single day off. You work, double the amount, whatever it is. And that is just where we're trying to get in front of it all. That's us controlling it. And therefore we will break before we get even close to where we wanted to be when it comes to that finish line. And that's the perseverance though of the consistency to do it, you know, for a lifetime. When people all the time are like focused on the retirement, I mean, I think of this like in the Western world always when it was like, 65, 62, with our retirement IRAs and stuff, 59 and a half. If I can
Mhm.
retire at 59 and a half and start drawing, my pensions at that point, like that's success. I'm like, what are you going to do for the other 30 years of your life? Or, like don't you want to like continue to develop yourself, continue to learn, like not burn yourself out like you're talking about. And that's that human comfort factor because we're miserable on what we're pursuing because it's not our purpose. We want to be passionate about it, but is it purposeful? And that can look a lot of different ways. I mean, I'm into my, third professional career, I guess I call it today. And, every day that we're alive, you're training for whatever your next mission is, your next operation, your next daily task. And so it takes the 47 years to get to this point for you and me to have this conversation. It didn't happen, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days kind of thing. And so, yeah, we all have our way of doing things, and I think if we're trying to control that too much, it normally falls apart.
Yeah. Mm. Before we wrap up, one final kind of, a bit of a nuanced take here, especially on emotional awareness. Do you think, Ryan, that constant emotional awareness, it can actually pull us away from living fully in the present, like making us overanalyze instead of experience?
Oh, most definitely.
Okay.
What do I call that? Analysis paralysis?
No, yeah.
I think about, like, here's a good example. We're going through this with our youngest daughter, picking out colleges and, just trying to even plan a trip to visit, like, one of the schools, and instead of, like, "Hey, we wanna leave on this day, we wanna come home this day. Let's look at flights. Let's, look at the hotel. Let's look at the rental car." And, there's nowadays like how many flights to get somewhere, right? A lot. And you have like terrible times, but it's really cheap. And then you have like the time you'd like to travel and it's super expensive. And then you have everything in between. And then you have the hotels and then it's like rental car or the Uber. And it's like after you search like one time, make a decision and execute. Do not sit there and like, well, if I wait till tomorrow, they might go down. They might go. You waste so much time. The ability to make a decision and move on past it allows you to accelerate everything in your life. We're not talking about a trip here for have my kid to go to college. We're talking about every action you do. If you sit at all, it's like picking out clothes. Like some people, I mean, I'd say even myself, I look in the closet here behind me and I got a lot of shirts. I got a lot of pants. Honestly, I wear the same 4 pair of pants and the same 6 shirts and 4 sweaters. You know what I mean? So, I don't know, somebody out there would be like, "Yeah, like Simon Cowell from" what was he on? Like, America's Got Talent or whatever different things that he was, on TV for. He had on in, like, a black shirt and black pants or white shirt, black pant, whatever it was. And the reason why he does that is that's one decision he doesn't need to make. So, like, whatever the next thing is, like, he's, like, basically that much further faster ahead of it because he doesn't have to sit here and pick out things that do not matter. Like, I'm not saying like, hey, if you like clothes and that's your jam, I'm not like, cool. Work on some other part of your life where you can
Mhm.
simplify it. But for me, yeah, it looks like that. Like I'm into camouflage, right? Because I wore it for 23 years. So like a lot of my shirts are camouflage. My pants, I like heavy duty work pants like Carhartts. And I want comfortable shoes and, socks are probably the most important thing you can have, for me personally, and just walked a lot of miles in Afghanistan, Iraq, and stuff like that. So if you can simplify it by choice. And so therefore you're not wasting time making decisions because, like I said, the faster you can make that decision, it'll allow you to speed up whatever you want in life. It literally draws the things that you want in life closer to you faster. So it's a wild concept.
It is. It is. It is. I think that's why there has always been like, debates and arguments over whether you should just do it or just think before you do it.
And just do it. Just do it. Like and I think about this all the time. I was, laid off from corporate America. And,
Yeah.
corporate America pays pretty well, but it's not my jam. When it comes to like fulfilling my bucket,
Mm.
my purpose, it'd have to be for a certain industry that, and then at the end of the day, be too far away from, well, really the people you want to work with. So what do you do? Do you go back to corporate or do you start your own business? It's like right off the bat, like you can give yourself the title of chief executive officer if you start your own business. Like it's title Art Protector Development, co-founded by myself and, the big man. And I'm the chief executive officer. So sweet. Like I got the title I always wanted in corporate America. Then you're like, well, I'm not getting paid yet. You got to build the clients. You got to build it. Right. So, so I think that's what we're really talking about here is that understanding is, not everybody, what do you want and when do you want it? And then what are you willing to sacrifice for? And those are some of the things as I reflect on my life where if I knew what I knew today, I certainly would make a lot of decisions sooner. And in the end, like all the material ones, I'm thinking about like vehicles where I probably like for months analyzed the market, looked at trends or safety or all these things or financing. It's like it cost you 10 more bucks a month. Like if you would have bought it a month sooner, or, did you save 10? But I don't know. I can't figure that out. I wasted a month of my life and how many hours when I could have been pouring it into something else. And so
Mm.
that's that human existence side of it that we've kind of been talking about the whole time is mindset and that ability to understand that it's all an illusion. And the coolest thing is like it can all change depending on how we decide and know that there's no wrong answer. How about that? That's a scary one.
And yeah, super, super. So I'm very sure listeners will have like a barrage of thoughts, and maybe they would like to share their own experiences or opinions. So they would like to connect with you. So if they would like to, what would be the easiest way for that?
Yeah, the hub of hubs for everything is ourprotectordevelopment.com. For those out there that, would prefer to go onto social media, Ryan T. Reichert, or Army RT 1978 will get you on any of the platforms. I think we're on all of them today, even though TikTok and what is it, X now? I probably, have just a handful of people that exist there. I think, my main ones is Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. But no worries. Certainly would love to hear from anybody out there. I'd certainly love to talk if you haven't noticed over the last 30 minutes or so. And just here to help. That's, I guess, how do they say it? Your talents and your purpose, the gifts that doesn't feel like work. And the cool thing is right now, I'm working. I guess you are too.
Exactly. And then one thing that you said, it really like sparked this joy within me. Like it doesn't feel like you're working. Like, there are actors, there are creators whose work, it doesn't feel like they're doing it. They're just kind of embodying it. Like it's effortless. But then in reality, back end, there are a lot of efforts. There's a lot of journey in there. So yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how it all comes together when we just let go. And it's not every day like trust me, tonight when I put my head in the pillow, when I wake up tomorrow morning, I kind of got to start it all over again. It doesn't mean, you know, this has taken months, days, hours of reflection, writing it out, speaking it into existence. I have all kinds of people in my corner that I go to, because I don't have all the answers. And so then that's where we need to ask for help. And that one, I'm still learning how to do that.
Super. So, besides, there you go. I'll have all the links, all the details that Van just shared, mentioned along with this episode. So, find them attached and find them along with this episode on whichever platform you listen to your podcast to. And if I can say, I think, listeners, if you're feeling like you have flown high emotionally, only to fall back into old patterns or old ways or your old self, this conversation is for you. Because the fall, it doesn't mean failure, it means you're brave and it runs, as Ryan said. And mindfulness isn't about avoiding that fall, it is about meeting yourself with compassion when it happens. So, man, thank you so much for being so candid. Really loved our conversation.
Oh, thank you for having me. Just blessed to be here.
And to everyone listening, if you are in a valley right now, do unravel in that then. And you are not broken. You are human, and until next time, this is the Marathon Woman podcast. Take care of yourself gently, and I'll catch you next week.